Hello there, rotters. Before we get started, I have a little early Christmas present for you. As many of you probably know, I have an out-of-control obsession with horror t-shirts and apparel, and my favourite items all come from the guys at Last Shirt on the Left. They're also an independent UK-based company, as opposed to those huge warehouse-based mass producers, which, if you're like me, is a huge incentive. Their designs currently feature trashterpieces such as Necromantic, Squirm, The Deadly Spawn, and Deathgasm, and a host of other amazing films. And they are offering Brainrot listeners 20% off all orders from now until the end of December, with the code BrainRotters2021. All caps. That's Brainrotters 2021. So just head to lastshirtonTheLeft.co.uk to grab yourself a sick bargain. The link and the code is also down below in the episode notes. Alright, drop the theme tune. Hello again, you sick rotters. Welcome back to Brainrot, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the best worst horror films of the 80s and 90s. I'm Stevie, your VHS veteran. I hope you're all doing horrendously. I can't believe this year is nearly up. It's mental. And Brainrot's 1 year anniversary is in January. Wow. What an incredible journey this has been. The community was born instantly, and it's growing and growing each week, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Also, Christmas. What are your Christmas horrors? I'd love to know. Which films do you revisit over the Yuletide? Is there anything off the wall? Like, do you choose Jack Frost over Black Christmas, or Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker over Gremlins? Let me know. Are there any super obscure ones? Personally, I like Elves from 1989, that's one of mine. It's the worst, and yet the best, but I'm still waiting for a Blu-ray restoration of it. Maybe when I open up Brainrot Video Blu-ray, that'll be our first disc. Drop me a line at steviesbrainrot@gmail.com and give me some recommendations, because I want to find some new ones. This week, we're talking about Roger Corman's 1980 mutant fish exploitation romp, Humanoids From The Deep. When I was younger, I had no idea what the humanoids were doing to the women once they caught them. I just thought they were suffocating them, but no, suffocation would have been preferable. Here to swim to the depths and talk through this trashterpiece with me is playwright and screenwriter James Graham OBE. I've known James since he was writing plays for pub theatres, and now he's one of Britain's most accomplished and applauded homegrown talents. So I'm very excited to have him here, and I made him watch Humanoids From The Deep. James, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, how are we doing?
Yes, very well. James Graham OBE.
Oh, stop it. I'm still the same.
No, you're not. You've changed. I've not actually seen you since you were OBE'd?
I describe it as being elevated above you in society. But
there
yes,
you go.
It was,
yeah. Can I want to ask a couple of questions about it. So, first of all, when the list of honours is published, is that when you find out too, or does like the Queen give you a heads up? Do you get like just to say this is dropping tomorrow? I want to give you a heads up.
She sends you a cheeky Snapchat, says don't leak this. What happens? Yeah, so you just get a letter. It's really, really old school. You get a letter through the lands on your doormat, and you open it, and it says you have been offered this thing, and you just get a little sheet of paper that says do you accept or do you not accept, and you have a bit of time. And I did without boasting my socialist principles, I did have a brief moment of going, I actually generally don't know like what I feel about this, because I'm a playwright and you're meant to be on the outside of the establishment and hold them to account. And I really wrestled with it, and I spoke to lots of different people who'd said yes and said no. I spoke to my family, and they were like, don't you dare turn it down.
Yeah.
They were like, they're like northern working class family who basically love the royal family. So I just said yes, and then I had to wait like 2.5 years because of the pandemic to go and get my thing.
Of course, yeah. I suppose that's a tricky one, isn't it? I suppose for someone like you, there will be people expecting you to turn that down.
Yeah, and rightly so. Like it's a bit icky.
Yeah, but also you do see it as kind of silly and fun, don't you?
Without a doubt. Like if I started to hate myself and how much I was stressing about it, and in the end, I just thought it means a lot to my family. It meant a lot to like my comprehensive school where I studied drama and learned my love of this world of theatre and film. So I just said yes, and then had a really nice day. It was good. My mum bought a hat from Debenhams, and we went and we had a midday pint, and then wandered over the road to the palace, and it was brilliant. It was really cool.
Yeah. And you were telling me just before that your mum was kind of eating into your time with Prince Charles.
Yeah. So what normally happened, it was because it was still sort of COVID-y. It was a smaller group of people, and normally you just go up completely on your own and have like 2 minutes with whoever your royal was, and mine was Prince Charles on this occasion. But because of COVID, you have to walk through the building like a theme park in the same order. So you have to take your guests with you. So that was really cool. I got to sort of stand there with my mum, but it did mean my mum talked and sort of ate into my time a bit with the future king. And it was very sweet. He was very lovely. He hadn't seen any of my stuff unless he was lying, including the episode of The Crown I wrote where I introduced him to the world.
Right.
But I
think he has seen that. I don't believe he hasn't.
Seen that. It's definitely seen that. I don't know whether he would have known I wrote it. It was the one where he learns.
Right, yeah.
It was the exciting episode of The Crown where he learns to speak Welsh, which I'm sure everyone can remember. He didn't mention it. And I was sort of told maybe don't mention it. So I don't know what the vibes are in the palace towards the crown. But yeah, he hadn't seen that. And he hadn't seen my Brexit film with Benedict Cumberbatch. And my mum butted in and said, well, it's on iPlayer, in a really sort of matter-of-fact way. It's on iPlayer. And he went, oh, okay, is it? And then she remembered it wasn't on iPlayer, but she couldn't remember the streaming service it was on. So she went through, maybe it's Netflix, or then she couldn't remember what the ITV was called or the Channel 4 one was called. She knew it wasn't 4OD because that's what it was called before it was called All 4. And I just sort of stood there next to them, listening to them talk about streaming services, and it was fine. It was absolutely fine.
That's wonderful. Oh, but that was totally for your mum, surely, because that's why any kind of accolade we ever get, it's always like, hey, mum, look. That's
and like even though it's completely. And she, from when I was like a 3-year-old boy, she was the one who encouraged me to write stories and would sit there reading what must have been absolutely contemptible works of fiction. Speaking of the work we're about to talk about on this,
how dare you? How dare you?
Surely not.
Well, one last thing about the OBE. So apart from it being like fucking amazing and impressive, does it come with any perks? Like, do you get like 2 police escorts a year and a signet to raise?
You actually do. No, you do. There's I can show it you here.
No way.
It's not. I don't just happen to have it next to me, but
right
it is,
at all times.
Only because I don't know where to put it. So you get it in a little box. But apparently, I'm not meant to wear the actual medal. I think you can only wear it on your military uniform, which I think the likelihood of that happening is slim. But I think there's loads of weird things. I think I can get married in St. Paul's if that ever happens, which would be nice. Yeah, so there's stuff like that.
Oh, sweet. Oh, I was actually joking, but you do get nice perks.
No, there's shit.
All right, well, amazing. Let's put a pin in that, because what I really want to talk to you, the reason you're here is because we're going to be talking about Humanoids From The Deep from 1980, which I made
Finally,
you watch.
I've been wanting to talk about this for decades, and everyone just wants to talk about politics and history. Oh, thank God. Okay.
Yeah, that's just a hobby, but what you really want to get to is the exploitation films of the 70s and 80s, I'm sure. So what are I'm assuming you hadn't seen it before, but what are your general thoughts on this film?
My general thoughts are, I try to not view it through the mindset of a progressive 21st century young man and try and imagine what it must have been like when it came out. And I'm not a snob, I'm a populist. I just like mainstream work. I grew up watching movies in the 80s around this time that were fantastical and scary and brilliant.
Yes.
Spielberg and George Lucas. And so it's not about a snobbishness towards a certain kind of work. Nevertheless, I wouldn't say I thought it was masterful in its execution of its lofty ambitions. I thought it was. There were some moments. I mean, I actually do think there were little bit moments that were really interesting in its portrait of a town and a community that's divided and at war with itself. And then then there's that bit where the horny sea monsters start raping women, and I wasn't sure what I felt about that, but
I'll give you some insight into that shortly. But actually, horror in general. Now, if I remember correctly, you're not a fan.
Why do you remember that? Did you try and show me one once that I rejected?
I'm pretty sure back in the day when we'd roll in from town, I'm quite sure quite a few times I've gone and tried to put something on, and you were having none of it.
That might be true. Yeah, I don't love them, and I've been trying to, knowing that I was speaking to you who does love them, I've been trying to work out what it is, and cause it's not a resistance to gore. I like gore. I like things that are gruesome. I don't mind violence. I don't mind things that are upsetting. I don't mind crying. I don't mind being scared. I think there's just something about like the deep existential despair I feel when something weirdly other, alien, dark, alien, not quite
uncanny,
human, uncanny, strange, sits in my head for a bit, and it just makes me wonder about our place in the universe, and gives me like an existential crisis about my life and my own existence. That's why I don't love them, and I really don't know why that is. Like I don't know why I don't. There's something about aliens that make me think of mortality or the futility of life or something.
I do get that, because I get a very physical headache because I love the idea of space. But when I start to think about it too much, when I start to think of the fact that it is an expanse that never ends, but how does it end? What's beyond that? Does it start again? But then that makes it a circle. So what's outside the circle? I give myself a physical headache when I think about how small and insignificant I am and my problems. And that doesn't ever help my mental health. But at the same time, I find it absolutely fascinating. But the thing is with horror, for me, there's something, we talk about this a lot in the horror community, about controlled fear, about choosing to put yourself through that. Because technically you're then completely in control of fear. You don't know when it's going to happen or if something's going to jump out and scare you. The control freak in me enjoys making the choice of that. And I don't know if it's preparing me for the real world, but I enjoy, I think that's what it comes down to, whether you like horror films or not. Do you like the sensation of being scared?
That makes total sense to me. And I do like the sensation of being scared. And I know exactly what you mean about not like the human value of looking at the ugly elements of existence in the face and not pretending it's not there. And the world is dark and scary and confusing and unpredictable, and to harness that feeling. But, I like being scared on a roller coaster rather than I like being scared having something ugly jump out of a cupboard. I think it's the ugliness.
But hang on. But right, I get that. But surely your mortality is more at stake on a roller coaster than what?
Well, literally it is. But also, it's not really. And the sensation of like life is so fragile. Yes, I like that. But I like that at Alton Towers. Then you get off and you have a slushie and a burger.
Yes.
I think I'd like a genuine. I've never really known what it is about, and I don't mean this in a judgmental aesthetic way, but like ugly puppets really freak me out. Cannot. It's the bit I love Star Wars for the same reasons you do, like the expanse of space and the stories and adventures that you can have throughout it. I don't love the bits in the cafes where a weird creature with 17 eyes stares at me. That's not my thing. I was so scared of like Fraggle Rock growing up.
That's understandable.
Yeah, and I know that's children's stuff that we were meant to enjoy, so I pretended I enjoyed it with my brother and my sister. But I was just scared of the big, ugly, furry, dead behind the eyes puppets that would look at you down the lens.
I completely agree with that, because that scared me. See, I was obsessed with what you were just talking about the creatures. I love practical 80s special effects where someone has had a vision in their head and they have created life from a thought in their head. And that to me was so impressive. But the stuff that is meant to be entertaining and meant to be a good distraction or charming to kids, that shit terrifies me. That's why clowns scare the fuck out of me. Fraggle Rock scared the fuck out of me. Big Bird, I used to have to turn off. It's just not right. It's because and it's that false sense of comfort that they're going, oh, look, I'm big and friendly. And it's that is the most
Yeah.
unnerving thing about
I think
that.
you're right. It's the juxtaposition. There's even some moments, as we all acknowledge, the greatest film on earth being A Muppet's Christmas Carol.
Absolutely.
There are even moments in that where just in the background something passes by, and I go, "Oh my God, what's that?" And if this is Christmas Carol, it's not meant. Having said that, Christmas Carol is about mortality and death and living your life and not being afraid of the dark things in the corner. So maybe that's the right feeling. But so there we are. So the prospect of monsters under the surface of the sea coming out, I wouldn't say it was triggering. It generated an eye roll in my face that I wasn't hugely looking forward to. Thankfully, as you said, it wasn't that scary.
No. So this was exec produced by Rod. Do you know who Roger Corman is? Do you know that name?
Well, I didn't know whether I was allowed to look some stuff up, but I did look some stuff up. And so he has a whole catalogue, a whole studio of these films in this tradition.
Yes. Yeah, these sort of drive-in B-movie exploitation. His first stuff goes way back to the 50s. And he made a lot of money from spending as little money as possible, basically. And that was his thing. And it was New World Pictures. And so this was just another one on his list. And so it was directed by Barbara Peters, who, as a female in the exploitation genre, it was quite rare. There were a few, but it was something wonderful. And when this was actually first in production, when they were filming it, the original title was Beneath the Darkness, and it read off the page like a psychological eco thriller.
Okay, right.
And it was, and especially politics and things that were going on at the time, and there was a fear of nuclear waste and all these sort of things going on. Yeah, it read like that, and then because of that, Corman managed to get actors with proper acting chops and some pretty seasoned pros in there. And the thing is, it was always there that it was going to be these mutated creatures that are a result of corporate experiments leading to the creation of these monsters, and the creatures were always going to kill the men and rape the women. So Barbara Peters, the director, she filmed it in a way that the scenes where the monsters killed the blokes it was gory and explicit, and it was really just rough. And then all of the scenes of them raping the women were delicately filmed. It would be shadows on a wall or against some rocks to suggest what's happening, so you never actually saw it.
Yeah.
But then, Roger Corman, being Roger Corman, he wasn't happy with this, and so he decided he wanted to see the rape, so he wanted boobs and peril, because that's what sold. And so Barbara Steele, she refused to do these reshoots of the rape scenes to make them more gratuitous, and so he went ahead and did it with the second assistant director. Wow, and then they cut a lot of the dead air, they called it, which was scenes that explained the plot and helped make sense. So they cut lots of that and slid these attacks in. And this is where Beneath the Darkness became Humanoids from the Deep. And everyone was really unhappy. All the actors who were in it as well, they weren't expecting to be in a film like this. And so then she wanted a name off it, Barbara Steele, and understandably. And Corman said, you can have your name off the film, but you'll have to pay for the credits to be remade. So she didn't. And so her name's still on it.
Oh, wow. There you go. Okay. That makes total sense. I mean, the film that seems to loom over it most is Jaws, which is a film, what was that 1975 or something? So that was 5 years before this film. But obviously a film, despite its production traumas, had great integrity, and it was a piece of cinema about what lurks in the deep and how a community responds to that threat. And then I guess we have this, but there were so many similarities, I thought. So you have the mayor of the town who bafflingly refuses to cancel the festival and the fete, even though children are being dragged away to their deaths. And
all the films that came after George, actually, they always had the sort of the corporate leader going, no, we must carry on in the threat, in the face of this threat. It happens in the film Piranha and Piranha 2. There's always this festival, this massive gathering where the threat from the ocean comes and gets them, and it could have been saved,
Yeah. Or that they're just like, so even when the threat is apparent, and normally people would surely just go and like get the National Guard or get the police, and they never do that. They wander off in a little tugboat to go and fight these creatures themselves, and it never works. And so I felt like, but as you said as well, I think what is interesting about looking at these elements of pop culture in any given moment is the anxieties of the age must somehow seep in, and corporate America and how it was polluting or taking over little American towns. I thought actually, even though I'm not going to say that overstate it, but I thought the politics of there's a one of the fishermen is of Native American heritage, isn't he? And he comes up against like the big thuggy union guys in town who are called things like Hank and Jim and John and Jeff and Dick. And there was an element just briefly of the writing which sought to understand that he felt that this river, these fish, this land was part of his heritage, and both the white men in the town, but also the corporations weren't respecting that heritage, and he's going to sue them to get his land back. And there was like a brief, interesting little nugget of community tensions, which I thought was a surprise against the backdrop of what was clearly an exploitation monster film.
Absolutely. And I think what you were just touching on there, I think that is probably the only bit that survived, because I have a feeling the rest of that tone was probably what they decided was dead air. Someone saying this is my politics. Land. It's like, that's not good enough. I want to see some nipple. And so and it's only when I revisit as an adult or semi-adult mentally in an old body that I realize that that's in a lot of horror films at the time. They are either about Native American land being taken over, or a corporate invasion, basically, and a lot about Vietnam. There was a string of films about homeless people, and actually it was all the vets from Vietnam. But of course, as a kid, none of that was there. But in this one, as you say, they touch on it, and I haven't read this, but I'm assuming that is part of the storyline they ripped out.
Yeah, I would think that is true, but yeah.
One of the things I will say though about the female exploitation in Roger Corman's movies, I haven't seen them all. From what I've seen, is that yes, the women are always beautiful and hopefully happy to whop out a nipple, but the female characters, the main ones, they're never quite helpless. Like they may be the victim or end up indeed getting killed, but they always put up a good fight. And yeah, the main female characters, they're actually warriors and they don't go down easy. And I really enjoy that. They're not these helpless damsels in distress. And I really love that one of the main girls in this, towards the end of the movie, defeats a humanoid by using cleaning products. And there's something empowering about sort of utilizing that stereotype and making it a weapon.
I hadn't thought of that. I don't know how conscious they were of them doing that, of weaponizing instruments of female oppression against these monsters. But you're right, actually. Like generally speaking, all the blokes in this movie are dicks, and they're very venal, they're very selfish. They like the monsters, I guess. Maybe it was sexual commentary. They were normally after one thing. And actually the women are more interesting, and obviously the scientist, Dr. Susan What's the Chops.
Yeah, she's a moody little girl though, isn't she?
She's not happy, and actually she's nowhere near guilty enough for the destruction her experiments has wrought upon this town. But she I guess again, the person who comes in and works out what is happening is a symbol of female empowerment. Perhaps we can stretch it, but
yes, yeah, I suppose. Actually, well, let's talk about the main sort of plot points. Before that, though, do you have a little synopsis for the people at home?
Oh, I do, yeah.
How exciting!
How long do you want it to be? I wasn't sure.
From a proper, well, you're a proper writer, so this this could whatever you want, give it.
Oh my god, the pressure!
I'm not in a rush.
Okay, well, okay. What's it called? Humanoids from the Deep. Great, this is going well.
Good stuff.
Okay, my synopsis. Decades before the global pandemic, a community reacts impossibly slowly to the presence of a mutated threat that targets the most vulnerable members of its society, even continuing with large-scale public events. The threat takes the form of horny fish monsters who, in a misguided attempt to smash the patriarchy, kill men, but then rape women of a fishing village until it gets its act together, sort of. That's my synopsis.
Nice, that's very good.
Thank you. Like that. That's bring it up to date.
That's giving it some gravitas.
Yeah, it doesn't deserve it, but thank you.
No, very good. Yeah, I have to say the sort of opening obviously is very much like Jaws. It's all the underwater, but I think they set it up quite well because you get this little boy, and the first person that dies is a little kid, which is kind of a no-no in a lot of horror films. And I thought, and the amount of blood that comes out of the water, I know,
and then the fact that the dad is just stood there on the side of the boat going, "Oh no, I should probably jump in after him," and just doesn't. And right. Yeah, but you're right. I was surprised that they weren't backwards and coming forwards. They just killed a blonde kid.
Yeah.
And then
And
blew them all
the
up.
whole boat explode. There's an alarming amount of explosions in this film. For a film that's mostly set on the water, it's quite something.
I agree. That's like a Simpsons gag, isn't it? Things that shouldn't blow up when you hit them with a hammer just blow up for no reason. Yeah, the boat blows up. There's a truck that goes into the water that blows up.
Yes.
I think a ride blows up at some point on the fair. Yeah,
because a Molotov is thrown into a house.
Oh
and
my
the house
God.
explodes instead of catching on
I
fire.
love that.
It explodes.
I liked that. Yeah, that was good.
Bless. But I think it does quite well with not showing the monsters too much early on, which Jaws set up, albeit by mistake because it was breaking down all the time. But it kind of works because you don't know quite what you're looking for. It's very Creature of the Black Lagoon, it's that sort of thing. But because when you do see them eventually later on, they're pretty basic. And these were designed by Rob Bottin, who was just one of the most incredible creature designers. He went on to work on John Carpenter's The Thing to do a lot of that incredible artistry. So they made 3 humanoid costumes. Only one of them you could actually manipulate and move around in, and the other 2 you could only really show them from behind or a quick shot or for good, quick cutting, quick editing.
Okay.
And so you just had really one. And I think they do very well later on, especially in the climax of the carnival, of making it seem like there are a hell of a lot of them, but actually there's 1 and 2 semi costumes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that is impressive. But yeah, how would you describe them? They're grey, they're greeny grey, slimy. They have hands
Brains
and feet.
Exposed. One of them has very long arms.
The really long arms, yeah, like of Stranger Things, and then but then they have these really weird round Space Invader sweet heads for no reason, and they're meant to be fish or like mutated fish.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because very conveniently they drop in at one point that a prehistoric fish was recently found at the bottom of the ocean in this area that hasn't been seen for millions of years. But at the same time, these highly pumped hormone salmon were released and lost, and those 2 met, and then this is what
inevitably
we get.
Yeah. Why did they pick salmon? Like salmon are so. They're not known as being like the pricks of the river, are they? They're not violent. they're not mean. They're like salmon. Yeah, true.
Like you think maybe a barracuda, something.
Yeah, or something with a bit of attitude, but it was just salmon.
But I suppose because it's salmon because they're tinning it, aren't they? It's a tinnery that they want to put up. So I don't know. I don't know if you really
American.
Yeah, a cannery. That's a tinnery.
You're so British. A tinnery.
An itinerary. No, I don't think you don't often have a sort of barracuda and sweet corn salad.
Okay, fine, but
salmon.
I don't believe salmon could be mutated that way, but we are where we are.
No,
and you're right.
I agree. I agree. Salmon couldn't be mutated this way for sure.
Okay, you do agree with that. Good.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with that. They're having the Salmon Festival, of course, and this is you touched on this. This is kind of an interesting plot point where you've got the town against the town, like the people who are up for it, who will bring commerce, and the people who are against it, it's going to ruin everything. What do you think of this setup?
I liked it. Everything about the setup I thought was really good. It was a town that is economically struggling, that something is literally scaring the fishers. They don't know what it is. I guess when you look at a society or a town, or actually most of my to talk about me for a second, because we haven't for 5 minutes. Most of my plays and TV dramas and films normally look at a system or an institution or a place at its most stressed, where it has to make a decision to go this way or to go that way. So I think that's a classic trope to see this town at its biggest stress. They need to decide whether they're going to allow this corporation to come in and radically revolutionize its economy. And there were fights and there were rivalries and it's all very masculine, and men with lumberjackets stand on the docks, scratching their beards and saying things about, I'm going to catch the most fish today, Bob, and it's all very good. But I actually thought the establishing of that town was pretty great. I mean, I was confused about some of the local part, like the trade union. I'm not. No, this is too boring. But yeah, it didn't all make sense. And maybe, like you say, that's because they just edited all the sense out.
And they pulled some stuff out. I have to say, I got very confused about what everybody's personal objective was. Sometimes I was like, hang on, are these guys the ones that are for it or against it?
Yeah.
And why are they Molotoving teenagers? And I wasn't
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
who was on whose side all the time. There's a lot of middle-aged mumbling white men that like mumbling more than Ariana Grande. It was like just a lot of and when you said like everyone fights, I mean there is a moment outside this
Oh my
meeting where
gosh.
the
Yeah.
entire town has a punch-up.
And well, you say a punch up, it's not quite clear what is happening. It is the most strangely edited fight sequence in the history of fighting. And one by one, they all just start punching each other, but not really. There's that amazing moment when, is it Jimmy or Jerry or
Johnny
leans his head out of a van and he gets accidentally punched and falls back in his van. None of it makes sense. And eventually they just decide to stop, which is good. But yeah, it's a town at war.
Yes, but they've even put on sort of those Batman TV show sound effects. It's like kathwack, shaboink, kawank.
Yeah.
I don't think kawank is one actually.
Kawank.
Klawank.
Klawank. Yeah.
So the first girl we see get raped. She was with her boyfriend, and he gets mauled in the sea, and then she gets dragged across the beach. So this poor actress, it was a fucking freezing day. And obviously she has to get her top ripped off and then have this creature mount her. And it was so cold that she nearly got hypothermia and her lips went blue that they had to keep getting the makeup guy to come on and put lipstick on her to disguise the fact that she was, on her way out.
Fucking hell, okay.
Isn't that rough? That's 1980s exploitation film for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they captured the spirit of the movie and the spirit of the production, which is... bless these women. But you missed the bit with the dogs.
Oh, of course, all of the dogs.
It's the holy trinity of horror, isn't it? First you kill the kids, then the dogs, then the women.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Very good.
Yeah, that poor dog that went wandering in the woods because it's just sensed something.
Mm-hmm. And you see it sort of being shaken by you don't quite see the dog, you don't quite see the humanoid, but then when you do eventually see the remains of the dog, I quite enjoyed this mound of sort of dog flesh and seaweed.
Yeah,
just this mouth.
I think that was in the spirit of ugliness. That was the worst bit for me. The dog with its tongue lolling out of its bashed in brained head.
Oh, it's so weird. Ever since I've become a dog daddy, it affects me so much. It's Sir Henry, the sausage dog.
Oh, it's still Henry. Lovely.
What do you mean? Is it still Henry?
No, as in I don't know what the social etiquette. I don't know what the social etiquette for asking. Is your dog still alive?
Oh, I see. Yes, he's only 4.
Okay, lovely, good. Just checking, and I'm really pleased.
Yes, So, but ever since I've had him, I've just been so sensitive to any kind of animal cruelty, or even if it's fake on TV. But if I step on a snail by mistake, I'm nearly in tears now. I don't know what it's done to me, but since I've been in charge and responsible for another life, it's just so I can't even imagine what it's like having a kid. I don't think I could handle it. I don't think I'd let them out ever. It's too terrifying for anything. And because Henry sleep whimpers. And I'm constantly, I jump up and I'm like, what's wrong, baby? And he's fine. He's just having a dream. But anyway, I think I'm just like, I would be a very intense parent.
Well, so you literally blocked out the death of these dogs from this film. You didn't even remember it.
Well, there you go. That's why I've skipped over it, because I wasn't happy. That'll be
the women, fuck them.
Yeah, fine. I don't have any interest. One of the more bizarre scenes in horror history will be the tent scene on the beach.
Oh my god, yes. I wanted to know your thoughts. The tent scene with the ventriloquist dummy.
That's the one.
What? Why? How? Where? When? All the questions.
I don't really have a proper answer for you. It's very strange. With the first thing that annoyed me is where they've set their tent up on the beach, because it is so close to the water's edge. That is going to come in within 20 minutes. And then, so you've got the girl is into it. She is enjoying her partner using the ventriloquist dummy as a bit of foreplay.
Yeah.
I think when they obviously then they get attacked by the humanoid, the ventriloquist dummy is still independently looking back and forth between them without anyone controlling it. That's where I ascended.
Yeah. Part of me died then, and I think for me it was the confusion that the film. Look, like in a film, you could have a kink that involves a ventriloquist doll, and we don't kink
Sure.
shame
And we
here.
don't kink
People can
shame. Yeah.
enjoy whatever they want to enjoy. But it was like the film was saying, this is sexy. It wasn't, the film wasn't going, this isn't sexy and these are dweebs. The film was going, this is really hot. And that weird stuff of when the guy who was operating the ventriloquist doll as she was taking off her clothes, it was sort of like basically saying they were going to have a threesome, and that his and there was some allusion to his wooden dick and whether she was going to get splinters. And I was like, bring on the monster and kill him. I'm done. I'm over this. It's horrible. That was so weird.
Very bizarre, isn't it? And
Yeah.
the internet doesn't give me much about it. It doesn't
Right.
tell me why that is in there, but I just know that people love it. And with a lot of films of the with a lot of the films of this era, there are quite often some really bizarre random scenes that come out of nowhere. In the film I just covered, Pieces, there's a random moment where this guy jumps onto the screen and starts kung fu fighting the lead character and just kicking him and punching, and then he collapses out of exertion, and then someone runs up and goes, "Oh, sorry, that's my kung fu teacher," and he goes, "Oh, sorry, I passed out," and then he runs away, and that's it.
Okay.
And
Great. Look, I don't mind. I don't mind really random shit. I don't mind that at all. That's really fun. But I think. Well, again, it's the sweet spot for me of an ugly puppet with monsters with female mutilation that I don't know, it just didn't do it for me, to be honest.
It's fucking weird. We have a girl in a truck, and a humanoid comes through the back, and this is the one that, as you said, it forces her to drive off the bridge, and the car touching water, like it's made of cesium. It explodes.
Yeah, I liked that. I also liked her reaction in advance of that. Like a monster appeared on top of her roof, smashed the windscreen. She thought she'd got it off, and then carried on driving, like trying to remember the destination. She was like remotely not remotely bothered at all that she discovered alien life and it tried to kill her. She got back on with that. Yeah, I'm not sure everyone was in the same movie, but your description of how it got made makes me feel like she probably thought she was in some intense political thriller, and the monster was a metaphor for social stagnation in the 80s or something. I don't know, but it was she was not in the same movie as the dog, for example. He was in his own movie.
Yes, there's quite a nice sequence scenes now, actually, where there was something in every scene for me that I took something away from it, whether it was intended or not. Because the next bit, I think, Johnny or Jimmy or John or Hank or whatever, he's obviously described, because that's when the kids have been attacked, sort of on the pontoon, and the Molotov and all of that, very confusing. But he's obviously described the creature to Dr. Blake. And so she's like, oh, right. And she's drawn up a quick sketch of what he's described. And it's the most detailed portrait. There's shading, there's texture, every shadow, every hair. And she's like, something like this? And he's like, yes, something like that.
Yeah, exactly that, actually.
Yes.
Dr. Blake. I don't trust her. She's
shifty.
She is shifty.
And the fact that she wears a lab coat all the time, I think is a little bit sus.
But she does she come to the town knowing that she's possibly responsible for? She sort of sits there in that first town meeting, not completely on corporate message. She looks a bit worried, like she maybe knows her genetic salmon has done something bad to the fish stock. But
that's what I never understand about her, because as you say, she's there. And she's going on with this presentation to the town, but she's sat with her arms folded, like, really, we shouldn't be doing this. But she's not going against it in any way. So she clearly has either an inkling of what's happened, or she full out knows.
I can draw pictures of them.
Yes, funny that. Something like this. And it's like, well, you definitely prepared that earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure her MO really,
but I don't know what she represents or why she matters. And she's not tons of lols, is she? She's not the most. She doesn't print most distinctly as a character. Why haven't we talked about Doug McClure?
Oh,
the guy who plays Jim, John, Jeff.
Back at the house.
He sort of teams up with Susan to find these creatures. Heath was like the good guy in the town, but I didn't know who Doug McClure was. I just like his name. It's like an algorithm printed out an all-American hero called Doug McClure. I wondered if that's where, again, not to mention The Simpsons continually, but Troy McClure, I wondered whether they got that from him just because he...
Maybe. Well, he was one of the people that they got on board very much by, calling it Beneath the Surface or whatever it was. I can't remember. Yeah, and then they shoehorned the rest of all his shit in. But I think he does. I think he does an all right job. He's the the guy with the firearms, and he's shooting them left, right, and centre.
Yeah, I feel safe around Doug, and he's the first one after a couple of days of genocide decides that something probably should be done and take Dr. Susan out onto the water in his little boat.
That's right. Yeah, Dr. Susan, she likes to take a picture, but she doesn't know how cameras work because she holds it on her temple. She holds the viewfinder on her temple and looks in a different direction while she presses the button. And I don't know if that's a character choice or the actress just has never held a camera.
I think it's representing that she can't look at the monsters that she's made. It's a searing analysis of the irresponsibility of corporate greed and the social consequences.
Oh, obviously. That's what it is. Well, she won't look at them when she gets the pictures developed either, because it was not pointing at them.
Yeah, that whole bit where there's about a 5-minute conversation on the boat where they talk about what picture she has or has not taken and how long it's going to get to develop it.
Yes.
And then there's her analysis of there's that bit where they go back to the lab and they work out exactly what's happened. But it feels
the
like
autopsy.
There's a lot, the autopsy.
DNA 5.
Yes, and it starts off, and I think we all get it. It starts off. Oh, we've created this thing to feed fish so that the stock is more bountiful in the village, and then there's like a load of science missing to the bit where now it's mutated to monsters raping women, and we just don't really worry about the middle bit where that happened, and we don't know why. But no, and I guess it doesn't matter because there's more important things. But yeah, it's not quite Jurassic Park.
No, yeah, they kind of cover it. This is where they bring in this prehistoric fish bit when they go, so 3,000 of our DNA 5 salmon escaped in the ocean, and it just so happens there's a prehistoric fish recently discovered in the area and must have fed on the salmon. You're like, hang on, but break that one down for me.
Yeah,
hang on.
Yeah.
So when did this happen though? When do we get from that to this?
Yeah, agreed.
Exceptional timing. But then we do have the climax, which I have to say, it's why you come for the boobs, stay for the carnival. Yeah,
it's always a carnival. Yeah, there's that bit at the end of the science bit where that's been covered, and then they go, oh, so there's like it's the nature bit where they say whatever these monsters are, they've developed really aggressive male tendencies, and they're killing all the men for competition to get rid of the competition, and they're going to mate with all the women. And they decide that that's a bad thing and that they should keep humans away from them. And then there's a pause and someone goes, the festival.
The salmon festival.
The salmon festival. You hard cut to what is probably now the 4th night of the festival continuing on, despite this existential threat. And I just at that point, I just sat back and I was here for the ride.
Let it happen.
It was going to happen, yeah.
I quite like their plan, though, is to, let them all come ashore and then set fire to the water surrounding so that they can't retreat without dying.
Yeah, I don't in terms of military strategy, I don't think that's going to go down as like the Trafalgar or the Waterloo of winning battles. I don't even know why if you were the monster would you then go back into the sea if it's on fire?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you're amphibious, you just don't have to go back in if it's on fire. Wait till it's out.
Well, they're having a good time on land. They're just raping and eating. So just stay. Just don't go in.
Just kill them on land.
But there is that bit where, like to your point earlier, that they do occasionally let women not be more than just raped. And there's the bit where the town, what do they call them? The beauty queen.
Miss Salmon.
Miss Salmon.
It's Miss Salmon.
She's pretty badass, Miss Salmon. So she defends herself with a hammer or a salmon, but she fights off one of these guys, and I enjoyed that bit.
She has her boob ripped out though. Not ripped out of her body. I mean, out of the of course. It's tit for tat, literally.
Ding.
There we go. But I love it. I mean, there's so much gore. Like the guy gets his head ripped off, and there's
Yeah.
gallons. There's just chaos. And as I said, considering there were only 3 of these costumes, it does make it look like they're completely overrun.
Yeah, I think if I was a child watching this, I would be terrified by the idea of that, if not the
Yeah.
execution. So yeah,
And you've got the one with the ridiculously long arms, and the woman with the baby, and it's terrorizing her outside. But she's the one who I think she kills 2 of them.
She does. So she's
whilst
Doug,
looking
she's
after a
Doug
baby.
McClure's wife.
That's right. Yeah.
She's at home looking after the baby. Quite right. And
of course.
And yeah, she all on her own. She's the only one who sort of knows how to literally kill them with her own bare hands, pretty much. So yes, I agree with that. And it's and then it's the morning after.
Yeah,
and they
everything's
assume
fine.
that they've killed them all with very little evidence.
Yeah. And I've definitely seen a couple get back into the water.
Yeah.
And but everyone, it's that classic thing of going, everything's fine, everything's done. We don't need to check anything. I don't think we need to do any sort of like closing report. It's over. And so Peggy, the girl that they rescued.
Yeah, from the seaweed.
From the seaweed. So yeah, she's with child. She's in a family way.
Yeah, after 24 hours. So
yes,
that's some potent mutated salmon sperm right there.
That's DNA 5 for you.
Hey, don't question it. Go with it. And then we get onto the even more unapologetically unashamed stealing of 1970s sci-fi moment.
Yeah, when the alien moment just bursts out of her stomach. But I also love that she's got the white contacts. Like somehow she's transformed into something as well.
This is Dr. Susan Blake, because Dr. Susan Blake is there. I have to use her full name now. Dr. Susan Blake is the one inexplicably delivering the baby, I think.
Oh, yes, I don't understand that.
And well, she's the doctor, so that means you can do everything. You can mutate salmon, and you can perform cesareans.
I mean, she's there to open a cannery, and she ended up delivering a mutant baby. It's not what she signed up for.
It's a bit like delivering a baby, isn't it? Opening a can of fish. It's the same principle.
I suppose so.
But shit the bed. Yeah, none of that made sense. And then cut to black.
And that is Humanoids from the Deep. I was trying to think, if it didn't have all of the added exploitation and boobs and rape and monster moments, what is left? And I suppose we'd have the bits that they cut back in, and it might make for quite a serious comment on societal issues if all that was in there. But I don't know if I know I wouldn't love it. But then I suppose the end was all as is because she filmed all the guys dying.
Would I be interested in seeing that version, or am I fine? I'm probably fine, but it's I guess it would be it's the timeless tale of a town under threat by some, doesn't even matter what, does it? Something's coming. I guess there's a bit of gender politics in there because it's attacking the men to steal the women. And maybe that's interesting, or maybe it's not. But I don't know.
But look, it's only 79 minutes or something. So so thank you for.
No, I didn't not
giving
enjoy
up
it.
that.
It's look, I'm a cultural sponge, and I love absorbing all elements of our output as a culture, and that was certainly something.
Thank you very, very much. What can we look out for? What's happening? You've got stuff going on. You've got a play about to open.
I do. I've got a play opening at the Young Vic Theatre in London in December. And that is called Best of Enemies, which is based on a documentary about the political feud between Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley, who are two people you probably don't have to know, but they came to blows on television in the 1960s as political pundits, and it sort of set the format, the template for modern broadcasting arguments and debates being toxic and horrible. So there's that. Yeah. And then a BBC, it's a crime drama set in my town on the BBC. And then, just other stuff. Yeah, just things.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very, very much. And I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. And hopefully I'll get to see you in the new year.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Toodles. Thank you very much, James Graham OBE. That was so much fun. I loved having James on. I hope I can get him back at some point because he's just got such an amazing vocabulary. It was very exciting. Thank you. All right, guys. Yes, well, I will see you next week. Next week, we're going to be covering The Video Dead. A lot of people have requested that, and I've got a really cool guest for that as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. If you'd like to keep in touch on Twitter and Letterboxd, you can find us. It is Stevie's Brainrot. On Facebook and Instagram, it's Brainrot Pod. So it's always so confusing. All this is down below as well in the episode notes if I'm confusing you too much. You can get our merch, which is designed by Greg Parsons from Last Shirt on the Left, where you heard the discount code earlier, steviesbrainrot.com, and also on Patreon. We'll be continuing this week with the Warlock trilogy with Becky Dark, and we'll be looking at Warlock 2, The Armageddon. What a fucking film. I love that so much. All right then, you lot. I will see you then. Toodles.